Hey guys, John here. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are checking out this magnificent amplifier by Friedman Amplification, the BE-100 Deluxe. And I consider this to be Dave's crown achievement. It's basically the Friedman mothership. It does a lot and it does it all so wonderfully well. So in this video we're really going to explore this amplifier and see what it can do. And let's start right away with a demo track. Take a listen. Great, that sounded really nice. So that was my new Edwards LP-CTM, a really nice guitar, equipped with a Gibson 498T pickup in the bridge. And I used the HBE channel on this amplifier. And you could see all the switch settings that I used for that clip, but I basically used the sat switch on the back for some extra saturation. For all the tones in this video, the amp is going to be fed into my Grossman Fatbox 1x12 cab, mic'd up with an SM57, another SM57 and an MD421 Kompakt. I've loaded up a Celestion Vintage 38 ohm in that cabinet, and the signal will be sent into my DAW, panned left and right, and I will be applying a little bit of a low cut here and there to clear out the low end to make room for the kick drum and the bass guitar basically. But yeah, the Friedman BE-100 Deluxe. Wow, I'm so stoked to have this here. This really is an amazing amplifier. I really love Friedman amps in general. My first one is the Double J Junior, which is discontinued now since Jerry Cantrell left Friedman, unfortunately. But yeah, that's a wonderful amp. I also really love the Jake Ely 50. I really love the small IR amps. I have the IRX and the IRD, which I demoed on the channel. Those are great, but this is just like the Friedman to try, if you know what I mean. So I couldn't be more excited. The BE-100 is basically one of the most legendary rock amps ever made, even though it's fairly recent in comparison to some very vintage amps, but it's already quite popular. And this takes that design to the next level. So you can do anything with this amplifier when it comes to modded British tones. It's a 100 watt amplifier with 4 EL34 tubes, hand wired in the USA, so high quality components, great craftsmanship. It's massive, as you can see. It's absolutely huge, and I love how it looks. I'm going to go over all the features later in this video along with some playing and dialing in, but I'll explain all the features for you real quick. So we have 3 channels. We have the clean channel over here, which is the Plexi channel, which is really nice. You can get it to break up and get some cool AC/DC style tones, but it's also wonderful for cleans. It has a 3-way bright switch over here, which is very nice. And then with this switch over here, you can switch the channels either to the BE mode or the HBE mode. HBE has more gain than the BE mode, okay? Now, of course, the clean channel has its own EQ, volume, and gain control, and the BE and HBE channels have a shared EQ, but both the BE and HBE modes have an individual gain and master volume control over here. Now we also have a voice switch over here, which changes the character of the dirty channels, makes it darker, warmer, or brighter. I found that I prefer the middle setting for the most part, which is the most open and bright sounding. And then over here in the master section, we have the system volume, which is basically a global volume control for the entire amplifier. We have a thump and a presence control. Thump is of course your low end resonance, and presence, you know, your top end brilliance. This frequency switch over here determines the frequency of the low end thump. I prefer to have it all the way to the left. It sounds the most chunky to me, but go to the right for a bit more of a tight sound and some different flavors. You'll get to hear all of that later. And then this response switch over here changes the behavior of the presence circuit. All the way to the right is sort of the middle ground, which is what I prefer. I think that is how the frequency is for the presence control on the regular BE-100. Set it to the middle for the brightest and most wild sound, and all the way to the left for the darkest and most smooth setting. So that's already quite versatile, but on the back we also have a bunch of switches that you can use to change the tone of the amp even further. We have the clean fat switch, which makes the clean channel sound a bit more thick and fat. We have the dirt fat, which does the same thing but for the dirty channels. We have the C45 switch, which changes the gain channels a little bit. It adds a little bit of low and top end. And then we have the gain structure switch, which you can use to lower the gain of the amplifier. So if you're not really a metal or rocker guy and you want to have more dynamic range and less gain, you can change that to a setting which pleases you the most. I prefer the setting with the most amount of gain on tap, so I have it always set to the bottom position. And then we have the SAT switch, which is great. It adds saturation and clipping to the circuit. If you enable that function, the volume of the amplifier lowers a little bit, so you're going to have to compensate by raising your volume controls. But that's a switch that will come in handy for heavier styles and stuff, and I like to use it a lot. Now the amp comes with a foot switch, of course, this little guy over here. We have a clean switch for going to the clean channel, and a boost switch, which you can use to go over to the HBE channel. Now, later in the video, I'm going to do a dialing in section where I play some simple chords and go over all the controls and stuff and try them all. But first, we're going to explore this amplifier a bit more with some songs that I made. And I want to try the clean channel for a nice, rich, chimey, and also thick clean tone using my Valiant Jupiter, also called Tony, with the polymath pickups in it on the neck pickup. Going through the clean channel with the Fractal Audio VP4 in the loop for some nice reverb. I'm going to set the bright switch to the brightest position, so all the way to the right. And I am going to enable the clean fat as well to thicken the tone up a little bit. Take a listen. Wonderful, that sounded beautiful. So we're going to dive into that channel a little bit more later, but I love this channel so much because of the range of clean tones that you can get, you know, with the bright switch, of course, with the fat switch, but also with the gain control. You can lower the gain control to get some really nice, clean, pristine clean tones, or raise the gain for some nice broken up clean tones or a light crunch. So that is wonderful. That channel alone is just brilliant, if you ask me. Okay, now I want to do some sort of classic rock with my ESP EII Eclipse with the Seymour Duncan pickups in it, the JB in the bridge to be precise. And I'm going to go to the BE mode on the amplifier. For this tone, I want to change the bottom end response a little bit of the thumb control, so I'm going to set the frequency switch to the middle, and none of the switches on the back will be on, so it will be a sort of basic setting, okay? And again, the voice switch will remain on the middle setting for all the clips. Take a listen. That sounded great. I mean, that's what this amplifier does really well, right? Those modded Marshall tones, and I just love how those guitars fit in the mix. Really nice. The mid-range is just so yummy. It's hard to explain, but that's really that Friedman thing, right? And if you know how Friedman amplifiers sound, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's do some heavy rock and move over to the HBE channel. For this tone, I'm going to use my Balaguer Espada with the Hypernova pickups. So we're going to do a bit more modern rock this time. Again, the HBE channel, but I'm going to put the C45 switch on to see what that does. And I'm going to put the frequency switch back to the left setting, which again is my favorite setting. All right, check it out and have fun. Very nice. That sounded absolutely wonderful. Again, it just has that really nice grind in the mids, that perfect mid-range and a good amount of top end, but it's not fizzy, you know, it's not too bright. You can get it to sound a lot brighter, of course, with the presence control, but It just sits in the mix so nicely, and it really does that signature Friedman thing. Now I want to get heavier and try some metal. Again on the HBE channel, but this time with the fat switch on. I'm going to leave the C45 switch on as well. And the guitar that I'm going to use is my Schecter E1 Evil Twin SLS Elite, tuned to drop C sharp. And it has the Fishman Fluence modern pickups in it. And I'm going to use the bridge pickup, the ceramic bridge pickup on the active voicing. And let's see how heavy this amplifier can get without the help of any boost pedals and such. Take a listen. Okay, that's perfect. It does metal really well, as you could hear, but it still has that signature Friedman sound. And I love how the saturation switch, or the SAT switch, adds plenty of gain so that this thing can really get heavy. Now, of course, this wouldn't be Sonic Drive Studio if we didn't try some extended range guitars as well. So we're going to start with an ESP LTD EC-401B, an Eclipse baritone with EMGs, tuned to drop A flat, I believe. And for this tone, again, I'm going to use the HBE channel with the C45 switch on, but I'm going to turn the saturation switch off and use a boost pedal, the Zuta Duality pedal to be precise, which is a really great boost pedal. And it also has a built-in gate, which is necessary for these really high gain modern tones with this amplifier, because it does get a little bit noisy when you boost it into oblivion, of course. Okay, let's go ahead and take a listen. Enjoy. Wow, that was really cool. So it worked really well with that extreme tuning and those active pickups, but it still sounded signature Friedman. The boost helped it to sound modern and stuff, but it still did that thing, so that's great. So it's definitely not one of those generic sounding amplifiers. It doesn't sound like a 5150 or a rectifier. It really does sound like a Friedman BE, which of course is what you want when you get one of those amplifiers, right? Okay, now we're gonna go a little bit more extreme with my Ibanez FTM33 8-string, a Meshuggah 8-string with the Lundgren pickups in it, tuned to F standard. Again on the HBE channel, but this time with the SAT switch on. And once again, I'm gonna use the Zuta Duality pedal to push the amplifier and to make it sound a bit more djenty and modern, if you will, with the gate on as well, of course. Okay, let's take a listen. All right, really nice. So this amplifier can do it all, of course. For the really heavy and modern stuff, I would recommend using an overdrive pedal of some sort. Not that it can't do it without, because again, with the sat switch, you can get it to saturate as much as you want. But with the boost pedal, you can shape the tone to make it sound a bit more aggressive, basically. So it does take boost pedals really well, this amplifier. But again, it just always retains that signature Friedman sound. And again, it's a sound that really sits in the mix really well. It has that pocket sound, if you know what I mean. It does the frequencies which the guitar is supposed to do so well. And I love it. Okay, now I'm gonna grab my Schecter Solo II Custom guitar, which is one of my workhorse guitars. And we're gonna play through the amplifier with some simple chords, some very simple riffs. And I'm gonna tweak all the controls just to see how they affect the tone, try all the switches and stuff. So this should be a lot of fun. We're gonna go through the exact same setup. So again, my Grossman Fatbox 1x12 with the Celestion Vintage 30. Okay, have fun and enjoy. All right. So let's go over all the features that this amp has to offer. And this amp has a lot of features and a lot of controls, as you can see. So we're gonna have some fun here. So right now I'm on the HBE mode, which is basically channel 3, or as the foot switch says, the boost. So it's the channel with the most gain. And I'm just starting out here because I wanna show you the master section first over here on the left. So we have a system volume control, which is basically global volume for the entire amp. I don't have it set up super loud here. This amp doesn't need to be set up very loud in order for it to sound good, luckily. And then we have this thump control over here and the presence control. Thump is of course your low end response and presence your top end response. Let me dial in those controls a little bit so that you can hear how they affect the tone. So right now I have thump set to around 2 o'clock or so. I'm just gonna dial it down and up. So with thump set pretty low, you know, it's gonna sound a bit thinner. So that's why I like to turn it up a bit. Let's turn it off all the way. So that's almost like a radio effect, if you know what I mean, kind of lo-fi. So let's bump it up to 12 o'clock. That's already much more satisfying, but let's turn it up to 3 o'clock. That's nice and chunky in the lows right there. You know what, let's turn it up all the way and see what happens. Very nice. So I'm going to put it at around 2 or 3 o'clock or so. Gives a nice low end chunk, but it's still kind of tight. Now the frequency switch right below the thumb control over here lets you adjust the frequency of the low end resonance. So we're going to mess with that a little bit so you can hear how that affects the tone. I'm going to start with the switch all the way to the left, which has been my preferred setting so far. Let's move it over to the second position. So that made the amp louder and it changed, sort of shifted the low end frequency a bit. Now let's turn it all the way to the right and see what happens. So yeah, all the settings sound pretty good to me. Let's go all the way to the left again, because that's just how I enjoyed the amp so far. But it's really cool how you can sculpt the low end thump and response of the amplifier with this control. I really like that. So we've got this going on right now. Great. Let's move over to the presence control. Let me just show you the sweep of this control first, and then we're going to change the switch right below that, the response switch, which again changes the character of the presence control, so the frequencies and all that good stuff. So first I'm going to just adjust the control so you can hear how that affects the tone. So that's pretty warm and dark, but still sounds good. Starting to get some life in the tone there. That's already pretty bright, so we're at around noon right now. Let's see what happens if we go past that. Okay, so that's really bright. A little bit too bright for my taste. But it's good to know that this amp can sound as bright as you want it, basically. Sometimes people say that Friedman amps sound a little bit like closed off or boxed in, but I don't think that that's the case at all. This amp can sound as bright and open as you want to, basically. So I'm going to stick with around 11 o'clock for now, which sounds like this. Now, with the response switch, again, you can change the character of the presence control, and I'm going to show you what it does right now. I have it set all the way to the right, which supposedly, if I'm not mistaken, is the way that the presence control on the standard BE-100s sounded. So it sounds like this again. Let's see what happens if we set it to the middle position. I think this is the position where it sounds more wild and open. Yeah, that's pretty bright. And let's try the left position. This is supposed to be a bit warmer sounding. So basically, if you have a very bright sounding cabinet, or if you really want to dial up that presence control, this could be a good setting. Let's see what happens if we turn the presence control up with this setting. Well, that sounds pretty good, to be honest. So, you know, it's going to get a different character because of this setting. You're going to dial in your amp differently because of this response control. So that is cool. I'm going to stick with the position all the way to the right. And I don't want the amp to sound too bright here. So again, presence to around 10 or 11 o'clock. All right. Now what we're going to do is move over to the clean channel, which is basically kind of like a plexi channel. Sounds very nice and sort of chimey. Let's take a listen to how it sounds now with all the EQ controls set to the middle. Cool, so it doesn't have a lot of gain, as you can hear. I'm already at around 7. Let's turn up the gain all the way and see what happens. Cool, sounds really nice. Great for like classic rock and AC/DC style crunch tones. Really cool. Let's turn down the gain a little bit more. Let's say to around 5 and see what we get with the neck pickup. It's a really nice clean tone. I like it when cleans or clean channels offer you the chance to also get some breakup. That's really nice. Great. Now let's try the bright switch. It has 3 positions. Right now it's set to the right position. Let's see what happens when we set it to the middle position. That's definitely darker. And the left position. Yeah, so I think the right position is the brightest one, and I like that a lot. Let's set the gain to 5. Yeah, so for a nice, rich, crunchy tone, I think that around 6 or 7 is a great sweet spot. Really cool. So on the back of the amplifier, of course, we have a bunch of switches, one of them being the clean fat switch, which is going to make the clean channel sound more fat. So let's see what happens if we engage that switch. First without. Now I'm going to switch it on. It's kind of on the subtle side, but it does make everything sound a little bit more fat. And then with the switch off again. Great. So yeah, that's the clean channel. Let's move on to the dirty stuff, and I'm going to tune to drop D. So this is where the fun stuff starts to happen. Let's start with the BE mode, and let's see what sort of tones we can get out of this channel. That's a great classic crunch tone right there. Love it a lot. Really nice. So yeah, this is a great sort of classic rhythm channel. Let's see what happens when we dial down the gain to around 12 o'clock. And let's see the maximum amount of gain that we can get out of this channel. That's already a quite satisfying tone if you ask me, but if we go to the HBE mode, we're gonna get even more gain, so that is awesome. Great, so it's not quite modern metal territory, but it's quite enough to rock out quite a bit. Let's turn the gain up all the way and see what happens. That is quite chunky indeed. I'm going to lower the gain a little bit, let's say to 6, and then we're going to try the EQ controls just to see how the EQ on this amplifier reacts, you know. Starting off with the treble control. Very nice, quite musical sounding. Now let's try the middle control. Okay, lowering it all the way doesn't sound great, obviously. Let's crank it to around 3. That sounds pretty nice. Let's set it around 6. Cool, let's try the bass control as well. Nice, so turning it up really gives you a nice bottom and thump right there. Very cool. So then we also have this voice switch over here. That changes the character of the amp. It's kind of difficult to explain, so I'm just gonna let you guys hear it. So I have it set to the middle position. Let's try the position all the way to the left after me playing some chords on this position. So it kind of makes it sound a little bit more round, right? That's the middle position again. Let's try the right position. Yeah, so that's even more round. So the middle position is a good middle ground. Really nice. All right, so we have a bunch of switches on the back still that we need to explore, so let's dive in. The first switch over to the left would be the fat switch for the dirty channels. So let me play a quick riff for you and then turn that on. I imagine that that is great for lead playing and stuff. Cool, makes it sound nice and fat. I've turned it off because I usually prefer my tones with this amplifier with it off. The next switch that we have is the C45 switch, and that also changes the character of the top and bottom end of the amplifier a bit. Let's see how that affects the tone. I like that quite a lot, actually. Let me turn it on and off so you can really hear what it does. Yeah, so with the switch off, it's a little bit more tight sounding, and with the C45 switch on, it sounds a little bit bigger. I like that. And then we also have a gain structure switch, which lets you basically lower the gain of the gain channels. I have it set to the bottom position, which is, you know, the setting with the most amount of gain. Let me try the middle setting so you guys can hear, you know, how that lessens the gain. You see, that lowers the gain a bit. And this is the top position. And then let's go back to the bottom position. Really nice. That's the sound that I prefer. I like gain. And then finally we have the SAT switch, which adds, I guess, clipping diodes or something, and it adds a ton of gain to the amplifier. It also lowers the volume a bit, so we're gonna have to compensate by raising the volume a bit. But let's see what this does for the sound. Let me start by lowering the gain to around 12 o'clock. So that's a nice crunchy tone. And let's see what happens when we engage the SAT switch. So that added gain, but it lowered the volume. So let me compensate there. Really nice, really nice. Let me add a little bit of presence there. Add a little bit of treble. So it's, you know, it compresses the sound nicely and makes it kind of more modern, you know. Let's add even more gain. Now let's see what happens when we engage the C45 switch as well. So with this mode, the amp can get quite saturated, as you can hear, which is cool. Yeah, so with this switch on, there's just plenty of gain on tap. That is for sure. Even with the C45 switch, it just sounds really good. Let's go back to the BE channel and see how much gain we can get out of this channel with the SAT switch on and the C45 switch still on as well. Yeah, that's more than enough gain. That's a really fat rhythm sound for sure. Let's lower the bass, crank up the treble a little bit more as well as the mids. Very cool. Let's go back to the HBE channel real quick. Man, that sounds so massive. So it's also a great high gain amp, especially with the SAT switch on. There's so much fun to be had with this thing. Really nice. And you know, the amount of tones that you can get out of this thing, you can try all sorts of combinations, you know, change the response of the presence and depth controls, change the voice, you know, change the switches to see how that, you know, affects the tone, and you can really sculpt your own Friedman sound with this. Really powerful. Love it. Wow, so that was the Friedman BE-100 Deluxe, one of the most awesome amplifiers I've ever tried. It's probably the most versatile Friedman amplifier that Dave has ever made, with all the switches and all the modes, and you can really dial this thing in so that it sounds exactly how you want it. Sometimes I've read online that Friedmans sound too nurtured in comparison to the raw sound of Marshalls. I'm not sure if I agree. You can get it to sound sort of, you know, nurtured and compact, you know, by making it sound very smooth and by toning down the bottom end. But of course, with the thumb control and the presence control, along with the frequency and response switches, you can really go crazy and make this thing sound really wild and really chunky, or super tight and really mixed ready, and everything in between basically. And then of course we have the different gain modes. You can get light crunch tones, great clean tones. You can get various shades of high gain with this thing. It's just really good and really versatile. And if you're like, I want to buy one Friedman amplifier that does it all, then without a doubt, the BE-100 Deluxe is the one to get. It's not affordable. Of course, it's hand-wired in the USA. You know, it does everything that you want basically, but it's definitely worth it. And this amp definitely is now one of my top 5 amplifiers that I've ever tried. It's so good. It does that signature Friedman sound, of course, which is what you want when you buy one of these. It's not going to sound like a 5150. It's not going to sound like a rectifier. It's also not going to sound exactly like a Marshall, but the sounds that you can get out of this thing are so good. And I hope that you also took that away from this video. So I love this thing a lot, and I can see myself using this for many, many years to come. And I have some ideas for future videos as well with this thing, so that's also going to be a lot of fun. So is this the ultimate Friedman amplifier? Is this Dave's crown achievement? Is this the mothership? In my opinion, absolutely yes. It's amazing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, because I'd love to know. Please also hit the like and subscribe buttons, as that really helps the channel out. If you want to support this channel, check out my affiliate links and get yourself a Friedman at Thomann or Sweetwater. But you can also go to my Ko-Fi web store and buy some of my impulse responses. That would really help out as well. And of course, you can also follow Sonic Drive Studio on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers!